In today's economy, times are tough. Bills are high. Gas costs money. Groceries cost money. Existing cost money. And maybe you're sitting there asking yourself, how am I supposed to manage all my finances? Bada bing. Cut to mountains of cash piled to the ceiling. Guys running around with boxes. Coffee cups. Chaos. Absolute bedlam. Introducing the Pirano family money management system. The revolutionary financial strategy scientifically engineered by people who looked at calculators and said, nah, bring me a scale. Why waste precious time courting money when you can just wait? Amazing. Absolutely groundbreaking. Features include floor-to-ceiling cash storage technology. Family arguments included free of charge. Built-in betrayal mechanics. Optional mob administration upgrades. Surprise shotgun package available later. Before Peraino Financial Services, I had stress, anxiety, debt. Now my family wants me dead. 5 stars. I stole from relatives, ignored warning signs, and developed catastrophic decision-making skills. Thanks, Pirano. But wait. Order now and receive the Deep Throat Accounting Starter Kit. Includes the research and Ninero. 1 giant pile of mystery cash. 3 fake expense ledgers. A disappearing profit calculator. 1 emergency lawyer. 2 guys quietly watching you from a car. Absolutely free. Warning, side effects may include greed, family collapse, paranoia, social club meetings, lawsuits, betrayal, attempted murder, mob investigations, stress eating, existential dread, and discovering your relatives scheduled your funeral before telling you. Do not use if your family already hates you. The Pirano Family Money Management System. Because what could possibly go wrong? Pizzaverse Studios, financial disaster since day one. Viewer discretion is advised. This documentary contains organized crime, pornography history, family betrayal, greed, shotgun ambushes, mob politics, catastrophic decision-making, and enough dysfunction to make Thanksgiving dinner feel like group therapy. This documentary is intended for commentary, historical discussion, satire, analysis, entertainment, and internet anthropology. No statements here should be interpreted as formal allegations beyond publicly discussed accounts and historical material. Also understand something. For decades, the mafia sold everybody this image. Honor. Respect. Tradition. Loyalty. Then history opened a door, and everybody found out half these guys were fighting over pornography profits while trying to murder their own relatives. Spectacular. Absolutely tremendous. Tonight's story includes brothers plotting against brothers, sons shooting fathers, mountains of cash, and a guy nicknamed the Whale surviving situations that would have killed normal human beings 3 separate times. Now on with the show.
Analyzing evil. The Peraino brothers, when greed became thicker than blood. Pizzaverse Studios. Palermo Productions. Original documentary. Written by Bambi Palermo. Narrated by Vincent DePrio. Research adaptation, the whole 9 yards. edited somewhere in Brooklyn, near a social club nobody wants to explain. They're brothers. But so were Cain and Abel. And somewhere in Brooklyn, history apparently looked at biblical betrayal and said, needs more mobsters, add pornography, add greed, add family members trying to kill one another. Because this wasn't simply a mob story. This was a nuclear family collapse with money piled floor to ceiling, with two dumb asses at the head. The Pirano family got involved in pornography, drugs, and anything else they could get their hands on to make money. Committing deadly sins practically became the family business. And when Deep Throat exploded into one of the most profitable adult films in history, their greed became thicker than blood. January 4th, 1982. Brooklyn, New York. Joseph Peraino and his son Joe Jr. headed to what they believed was a routine meeting with Colombo family bosses. What they didn't know was they were driving toward an ambush. Worse, the order had originated with Joseph's own brother, Tony. So how exactly does a relationship between brothers turn into murder? Simple. Money. Because every family has disputes. Then there are families with tens of millions of dollars involved. Different category entirely. The Pirano brothers. Early 1970s. Joe Peraino came from a gangster family. Life wasn't bad. Joe wasn't especially smart. He wasn't especially ambitious. But his older brother Anthony, Fat Tony Peraino, let him tag along. Both men belonged to the Colombo crime family. Loan sharking. Gambling. Extortion. Street rackets. Typical mob activity. People around them described them as loud, boisterous, and rough. Not exactly sophisticated operators. Nobody accused them of finesse. They got involved in anything that made money. Anything. And within the Colombo family, they weren't especially loved. Tony was considered the brains. Joe was called the whale. Not exactly because of his intellect. Nobody had much nice to say about him except observations involving his size. The brothers eventually found a profitable little corner of business. Pornography. Back then, home video didn't exist. Times Square looked like civilization had briefly surrendered. Adult theaters, peep shows, street hustlers. You could buy almost anything. And the Peranos controlled a large chunk of it. The business nobody respected. The films themselves weren't exactly cinematic masterpieces. Cheap loops. Grainy production. Low budgets. Absolute garbage. But garbage can still make money. And money always gets attention. Even so, pornography sat at the bottom rung of organized crime. Ironically, mobsters looked down on it. Imagine gangsters judging morality. That's like getting nutrition advice from carnival food. Still, money talks. And eventually everybody starts listening. Enter Gerard Damiano. Then one day, a New York hairdresser named Gerard Damiano walked into the office. He had an idea. A feature-length adult film. Not loops. Not random scenes. Characters. dialogue, comedy, a story. For the era, this sounded insane. He also had a title, Deep Throat. The Peranos hated it. They hated the actress. They hated the concept. Because naturally, the people least qualified creatively suddenly become experts. A timeless tradition. Damiano insisted. Eventually, they agreed. And history quietly changed. The business they stopped counting. Miami, 1972. Deep Throat was shot in 6 days. Nobody involved realized what was coming. Then the movie exploded. Johnny Carson joked about it. Celebrities discussed it. People lined up around blocks. Cash flooded in. And eventually things reached levels of absurdity. Money reportedly stacked floor to ceiling. They stopped counting. They started weighing it. Think about that sentence. Arithmetic officially surrendered. The empire gets stupid rich. Deep Throat didn't simply become successful. It became a phenomenon. People from every background lined up to see it. College students, celebrities, curious couples, people who probably told friends they were attending something much more sophisticated. Suddenly, pornography wasn't hiding in alleyways anymore. It was entering mainstream culture. The Peranos went from bottom feeders to major earners. And once money starts arriving by the truckload, people start changing. Or, more accurately, people reveal who they already were. The office reportedly became buried in cash. Floor to ceiling. Not figuratively. Literally. And if somebody thinks mountains of money improve human behavior, history would like a word. Money reveals everybody. Tony invested. Real estate. Garment businesses. Expansion. His son Butchie dreamed bigger. Butchie didn't just want pornography. He wanted Hollywood. He launched Bryanston Films and eventually distributed movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Bruce Lee Pictures, and other cult hits. He had instincts. He had ambition. He actually had vision. Joe the Whale and Joe Jr. Different story. No vision. No plans. Just appetites. People around them described them as lottery winners without discipline. Money out. Ego up. Common sense gone. The classic recipe. The Memphis problem. Then came prosecutors. Obscenity laws. Trials. Public outrage. Deep Throat became the center of one of the strangest legal circus acts imaginable. Authorities wanted to attack pornography. But they also wanted something bigger. The mob. Suddenly, newspapers connected organized crime with pornography profits. Somebody's skimming. Money kept coming. In fact, controversy made Deep Throat even bigger. People wanted to see what authorities wanted banned, which meant larger crowds, more money, more more opportunities. And then envelopes started arriving lighter. Tony noticed. Butchie noticed. Everybody noticed. Except maybe the people stealing it. Because Joe the Whale and Joe Jr. allegedly started thinking, how would anybody know? Bad thought. Very bad thought. Because stealing from your brother is dangerous. Stealing from mob bosses. That's a shorter meeting. The family finally breaks. Tony returned. And he wasn't happy. He believed money had disappeared. Not thousands. Millions. And now the situation moved beyond family arguments. Because according to mob logic, if you steal from one made guy, you steal from everyone. Soon conversations started happening. Quiet conversations. The kind held in social clubs, the kind where nobody wants to hear their own name mentioned. Tony's message became clear. Joe and Joey had to go. The father-son disaster. As if things weren't ridiculous enough, history somehow got weirder. Joe Jr. discovered his father had been sleeping with his wife's mother. Read that sentence again. Because yes, that happened. Joe Jr. became enraged and eventually shot his own father 5 times. Joe the Whale survived. Because apparently reality itself had stopped asking questions. Mob bosses now had an entirely new problem. Scandal. Humiliation. Embarrassment. And the Colombo family hated embarrassment. Now Joe and Joey weren't simply thieves. They became walking punchlines. That sealed everything. The hit moved forward. The social club conversations. Inside mob social clubs, there are conversations nobody wants attached to their name. Quiet rooms. Coffee cups. Smoke hanging in the air. Card games stopping mid-hand. Guys suddenly getting real interested in staring at walls. Because once certain names enter a room, people start understanding exactly where things are headed. Joe Peraino. Joe Jr. And suddenly the atmosphere changes. Because now this wasn't simply about money. Money starts arguments. Disrespect starts funerals. The Colombo family already had a reputation for internal violence. Their history looked less like an organization and more like a family tree somebody attacked with a chainsaw. Arguments inside that life had a tendency to end one way. Missing people. Closed caskets. Questions nobody asked. Now Joe and Joey somehow managed to create the perfect storm. Missing money. Family betrayal. Embarrassment. Scandal. Humiliation. Every category checked. And mob logic operates under rules completely detached from normal civilization. People can forgive debt. People can forgive mistakes. People can even forgive violence. Humiliation, different story. Because if other families started laughing, that became its own emergency. Soon quiet conversations became serious conversations. Serious conversations became decisions. And once decisions get made in back rooms like these, there usually isn't a second meeting. Because by the time your name reaches the administration, the conversation usually isn't, "How do we fix this?" It's, "How do we end this?" And Joe Pirano and his son had no idea that somewhere in Brooklyn, their clocks had already started ticking. The men who got the call. There are phone calls nobody wants. The kind where somebody says, "Come down to the club, we got to talk." Nobody hears that sentence and thinks, "Fantastic, probably winning an award today." Because inside organized crime, that usually means one thing, something ugly. Soon names started circulating. Who could handle the job? Who knew Joe and Joey? Who could get close enough without raising alarms? Because the people picked for work like this weren't movie assassins. No dramatic music, no cool one-liners, no slow motion. Just nervous men trying to survive long enough to avoid becoming the next problem. The assignment eventually landed with men who knew the Peranos. And suddenly everything became real. Because talking about a hit and carrying one out are two very different conversations. In movies, assassins walk into rooms looking calm, cool, collected, like they just stepped out of a leather jacket commercial. Reality looked different. Reality looked like anxiety, sweat, second guessing. Because now somebody had to look people they knew in the face, shake their hands, act normal, and quietly guide them toward a funeral they didn't know they were attending. And that part never gets shown in the mythology. Everybody talks about the trigger. Nobody talks about the hours before it. The waiting, the planning, the fear. Because inside that life, one truth sits over every job. If this goes wrong, you don't get a second chance. Because if Joe and Joey sensed something, if they saw one wrong look, one strange movement, one bad lie, the hunters could become the targets real fast. And suddenly everybody understood something. This wasn't business anymore. This was a countdown. House hunting for a hit. Now came the hard part. Location. Because planning a mob hit wasn't like television. Nobody walked into abandoned warehouses with thunder outside and dramatic music playing. This was logistics. Traffic. Noise. Escape routes. Witnesses. Timing. The people planning the hit needed somewhere comfortable. Somewhere Joe the Whale and Joe Jr. wouldn't question. Somewhere that looked ordinary. Which is always the strange thing about violence. History-changing moments usually happen in places nobody would notice. A porch. A street. A quiet neighborhood. They eventually settled on Lake Street in Brooklyn. Close enough. Quiet enough. Predictable enough. The nearby trains helped. Noise covered noise. The planners studied the neighborhood. Watched movement. Timed activity. Looked for windows. Looked for people. Looked for anything that could go wrong. Because if something felt off, if somebody suddenly walked outside, if Joe or Joey sensed even a little danger, the whole thing could collapse instantly. And there was another problem. Joe the Whale wasn't exactly easy cargo. Nobody wanted a complicated cleanup operation involving 2 large bodies and a disaster scene. So the decision became simple. Do it outside. Do it fast. Leave immediately. Because once Joe and Joey stepped onto those stairs, the planners believed there would be nowhere to go. No exits. No time. No second chance. The trap wasn't built around drama. It was built around comfort. Because people rarely panic when they think they're exactly where they're supposed to be. The waiting game. Every story about violence focuses on the moment. The shots. The chaos. The headlines. Nobody talks about waiting. But waiting is where panic lives. Because after the location gets picked and the plan gets approved, there's nothing left except sitting with your own thoughts. And that's where things get dangerous. People start replaying scenarios. What if somebody notices? What if Joe gets suspicious? What if Joey sees something? What if police roll by? What if everything goes sideways? Because contrary to mythology, guys doing jobs like this weren't fearless movie villains. Fear kept people alive. Fear made people check mirrors. Fear made people memorize exits. Fear made people pay attention. And somewhere during all of this, Joe the Whale and Joe Jr. continued living normally. Eating. Collecting. Talking business. Completely unaware. No alarms. No warnings. No signs. Because that's the ugly thing about betrayal. Most people never see it coming. And somewhere in Brooklyn, the clock kept ticking. The ride to the meeting. January 4th, 1982. Brooklyn. Joe the Whale and Joe Jr. believed they were heading toward another routine sit-down. Business. Numbers. Money. Nothing unusual. No dramatic warning signs. No strange feeling. No movie moment where somebody suddenly says, I got a bad feeling about this. Because real life almost never works that way. A car arrived at the diner. The 2 men climbed in. Father and son still had tension between them. The family scandals. The attempted shooting. The embarrassment. But business was business. And money had a way of forcing people back into rooms together. Meanwhile, somewhere nearby, other men waited. Watching. Timing. Counting distance. Watching every movement. Because years of greed and betrayal had finally reached collection day. And the terrible thing about countdowns is that only one side knows they exist. The trap closes. The car finally arrived. Lake Street. Quiet. Ordinary. Nothing special. Exactly what everybody wanted. Joe the Whale and Joe Jr. stepped out. No panic. No hesitation. no suspicion. Because as far as they knew, this was another business meeting. Another night. Another conversation. Another pile of money waiting to be discussed. They started walking. 20 feet. 30 feet. And somewhere behind them, another car slowly moved. Not fast. Not reckless. Slow. Careful. Because timing was everything. Too early and somebody runs. Too late and somebody reaches a door. Years of lies, greed, embarrassment, theft, and betrayal had all narrowed down to a handful of steps on a Brooklyn sidewalk. Joe and Joey kept walking. Still unaware. Still believing they were exactly where they were supposed to be. And then the trap finally closed. Shotguns on Lake Street. Everything happened fast. Too fast. The men waiting inside the second car saw movement. Saw the distance. Saw the timing. And suddenly doors opened. No speeches. No dramatic movie dialogue. No final warning. Just movement. Joe Jr. saw them first. And for one split-second, instinct finally kicked in. Run. Too late. Because once he saw the shotguns, that tiny window had already closed. Adrenaline exploded. Seconds suddenly felt like hours. Because that's what violence does. It stretches time. Turns moments into memories people replay forever. The sound shattered the street. Chaos. Movement. Panic. Joe the Whale never made it to the door. Everything the planners worried about. All the waiting. All the timing. All the fear had now become reality. Years of greed, lies, stolen money, humiliation, and betrayal had finally reached their ending on a Brooklyn porch. The shot that hit the wrong person. When the shooting stopped, everyone believed the job was finished. Joe Jr. went down. Joe the Whale dropped. And somewhere in the confusion, people started thinking the story was over. It wasn't. Because hidden inside every organized crime story is the same brutal truth. Violence almost never stays where it's aimed. Inside the house on Lake Street lived Veronica Zorat, a social worker, a former nun. A woman with absolutely nothing to do with pornography. Nothing to do with mob politics. Nothing to do with greed. Nothing to do with any of it. She wasn't part of a crime family. She wasn't connected. She wasn't even supposed to be in this story. She had been bringing laundry downstairs. Normal life. Ordinary life. And then one shotgun pellet found her. Just like that. Gone. And suddenly this stopped being another mob hit. Because now somebody completely innocent had paid the price. Silence. Police wanted answers. Who picked Joe up? Who drove the car? Who pulled the triggers? And for investigators, this looked like every other mob case. Bodies. Rumors. Street whispers. And one survivor, Joe the Whale, lived. Again. Not healthy. Not lucky. Not exactly untouched. But alive. And police hoped maybe this time things would be different. Maybe now he'd talk. Maybe now he'd give them names. Maybe now survival changes things. It didn't. Nothing about the diner. Nothing about the ride. Nothing about the meeting. Nothing about who picked him up. Silence. Mob rules. Because for all the scandals, for all the embarrassment, for all the chaos, Joe still understood one thing. Talking creates bigger problems. The curse of Deep Throat. Deep Throat changed culture. It changed pornography. It changed distribution. It changed organized crime. But almost everybody standing near that explosion seemed to lose something. Gerard Damiano created the phenomenon. And somehow the man who built the machine walked away with almost nothing. The money? Gone. The empire? Controlled by other people. Linda Lovelace lived a complicated and tragic life. The Peranos destroyed themselves. Money disappeared. Violence followed. Families fractured. Bodies dropped. And then history pulled one final twist. Technology changed. Home video arrived. Pornography shifted. The giant profits dried up. The mountains of cash stopped. And eventually the Pirano family faded into memory. Like a lot of empires built on greed. Built fast. Destroyed faster. Because history has a habit of collecting debts. Eventually. Always. The moral. People blame greed for stories like this. But greed wasn't really the beginning. Greed was gasoline. The fire already existed. The lies. The ego. The appetites. The shortcuts. Money didn't create monsters. Money introduced monsters to bigger rooms. Because once giant piles of cash show up, people stop asking themselves, should we do this? And start asking, how much more can we get? The Peranos didn't collapse because of Deep Throat. They collapsed because eventually everybody around the table wanted a bigger piece. And history keeps teaching the same lesson. When greed becomes religion, family usually becomes negotiable. Deep Throat changed pornography. It changed distribution. It changed culture. It changed organized crime. But for almost everybody standing near the explosion, the ending looked ugly. Because history has a strange habit. Empires built entirely on appetite eventually consume themselves. Every time. The Peranos chased money. Then they chased more money. Then they started chasing each other. And somewhere along the line, they forgot the thing every old-school gangster claimed mattered most: family. In the end, all the money in the world couldn't buy loyalty, couldn't buy trust, couldn't buy peace. And it definitely couldn't stop history from collecting what it was owed. If you enjoyed this descent into greed, organized crime, family betrayal, pornography history, and enough dysfunction to make a soap opera quit out of professional respect, like, subscribe, join the family. Because around here, we don't just tell stories. We dig up the ones history buried. And trust me, history leaves some weird bodies in the basement. Thank you for watching. Seriously. Out of every possible thing on Earth, you decided to spend part of your day hanging out listening to a documentary involving pornography empires, mob betrayals, family disasters, shotgun ambushes, and a man nicknamed the Whale repeatedly surviving things that sound medically impossible. That says something. Not exactly sure what it says, but it definitely says something. To the Replay Gang. To the Pizzaverse crew. To everybody watching from the Midwest, Brooklyn, Jersey, Florida, overseas, or pretending to work while secretly watching documentaries. You're appreciated. And remember, money comes and goes. Views come and go. Internet embarrassment lasts forever. We'll see you next time.
Today's modern digital wasteland. Anybody with a webcam, blood pressure medication, and unresolved childhood issues can suddenly become an internet gangster. Introducing the Banana Family. Internet Tough Guy Starter Pack. The official survival kit for middle-aged livestream philosophers and their dim-witted emotional support offspring. Inside every package you get, one recycled wise guy story from 1987. 3 hours of incoherent yelling about loyalty from a guy who can't even remember his own live stream password. Complimentary. Call every woman a bimbo. Emergency defense mechanism for when arguments get too difficult. And of course, fake banana respect package. Perfect for men who mistake YouTube subscribers for soldiers, family members who peaked during the AOL era, and anybody who says, "You disrespected my father," while buffering in 480p. Warning. Side effects may include yelling over women, fake outrage, low testosterone posture, couch stains, and spontaneous Facebook tough guy speeches after midnight. Back in my day, back in your day, gas was $1, and your knees still worked. Take it easy, Grandpa Gladiator. The Banana Family. Internet Tough Guy Starter Pack. Because when reality fails, there's always live streams. Brought to you by Pizzaverse Pierce Studios. Documenting digital delusion one live stream at a time.
So anyway, you put any lotion and then because without any lotion on the steak, put up your ass, you're gonna damage your ass. So anyway, let's see who's there. We got a lot of guys there, which I'm very happy about that. I don't know. So okay, so let's see what I
Make fun of that he's slow. 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 Make fun.
So anyway,
Make fun of that he's slow. Make fun of that he's slow.
let's see who's there. We got a lot of guys there. So anyway,
Make fun of that he's slow. 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 Make fun of that he's.
A good father, 2 sons and a daughter, but he wakes up and he asks himself, why even bother if he cannot feed his family? The wage he's paid's insanity. Every day he's dealing with a new calamity. Lost his old occupation, but it wasn't immigration. It was a machine, automation that replaced him. Politicians left him corruption since the recession. So he grabs his Smith & Wesson, says he'll teach him all the lesson. Like, get down on the ground. It's a stick up, nobody make a sound. Don't even hiccup or I'm emptying around. I'm done playing games, so I'm going down in flames. Let it rain over Washington. It's a stick up, nobody make a sound. Don't even hiccup or I'm emptying around. I'm done playing games, so I'm going down in flames. Let it rain over Washington. He lost his pension, sunk into depression. Congress is defecting, it's been adding to the tension. Came back from war and he's been post-traumatic stressing. Can't afford his medicine he took for his aggression. He needs help, relying on a system that rejects him. Took away his benefits but left him with this weapon.